Hello and welcome. I'm Maria Ressa. Joining us today is Elmer Soto, a unique voice in Asia Pacific. He used to work with Facebook, opened Facebook in Asia Pacific, then moved on to Instagram, and of all things now, he is looking to change the world. Elmer, thank you for joining us.
Hey Maria, you're very welcome. Excited to be here.
Um, you are embarking on this project, a project that is geared to the Philippines. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's definitely geared to the Philippines. I'm born and raised in the Philippines, and but I've been in the technology space my entire life, worked in Silicon Valley-based companies, lived in Silicon Valley for a moment, and unbeknownst to myself and many of us, there is an invention, an innovation that is embedded in every single personal computer out there that's delivered to the world by a Filipino, a 68-year-old gentleman who lives in Silicon Valley. And I never met him. I've never even heard about him up until 3 years ago. He's since become a good friend and mentor now. And I just felt like it's a story that we need to tell, not only to Filipinos, but to most of Asia Pacific and to the world.
So you've taken time off and you've focused on this one. What do you, I guess, what do you want to do with this, aside from telling the story?
Yeah, it's what I really want to do is to inspire. I've had a chance through my board work with an organization called PhilDev, which is founded by the protagonist of this life story that you and I are about to talk about. And what I realized over the past few years is that Dado Banatao is the man who innovated the PC chipset that is available in every single personal computer today, is not really unique. What I mean by that is that he is not that much smarter than anybody else. He's just a lot more determined, and I've learned that there are no shortage of Filipinos who are equally, if not brighter, who are equally, if not more determined. And what they really need are two things: inspiration and also the confidence or the knowledge to know that someone's done it before, that it can be done, that they could break through whatever barriers or friction that's in their way today.
And what was Dado's secret that others can learn from?
Yeah, so a bit of background on Dado, a gentleman who really proud to now call a friend and a mentor, and I've gotten to know. He grew up in a very small town out in Cagayan Valley, son of a farmer up north, and grew up in a town with no electricity and no running water in the home. Father is a farmer, and so that story in of itself is incredible. How he was able to win a scholarship to go to Mapua Engineering that ended up with a job offer for Boeing, the airplane makers out in Seattle, Washington, to be able to go to Stanford School in Silicon Valley for engineering, and on and on. How does a man go from that little town, the son of a farmer, to Stanford, to having innovated on something so disruptive in our world today? And what made him really special, and he'll say it himself, is that he's simply more determined. And also because this is what I love about Dado's life story. I think there's the film that I helped create and produce is about Dado, but I think a lot of the story is about his family. His father, in particular, is a farmer, has three sons, healthy sons, and he somehow, a man, a farmer who's never been educated, felt that education is paramount, is absolutely important, and he never asked any of his sons to work on the farm. And Maria, you and I are Filipinos and have been around farmers all our lives, and that's a unique perspective, right? You've got a field to toil. You have three healthy sons, and somehow you made them focus 100% on education. save every single dollar, peso, save, borrow from everyone in order to put your kid through education. So I think, like, Dado is determined, and he prioritized education above everything else, and that led to what he's been able to achieve.
So technology is changing the world, and from the way you speak about Dado, it's clear he's inspired you. When you say you want to inspire, that this film that you're creating can inspire Filipinos, inspire them to do what?
Yeah, so there are too few of us who have had the luxury and the privilege to sit down and have conversations with Dado, and to understand his motivation and how he got to where he is today. And so when I think about Dado and technology, the question that I ask myself is that how can we scale? How can we scale his story? How can we scale Dado and have him sit down with as many people as possible who have access to the story that we're about to tell, through Facebook and YouTube and such, that we're going to distribute. And what we really want to do is inspire as many Filipinos, as many folks in Southeast Asia who are who know that they can aspire to do something greater with a purpose, but it has to start with education. So what we really want to tell people is that it can be done, and it starts with education. That then leads to the ability to innovate, and subsequently to be able to create businesses that can distribute wealth.
How do you see the Philippines today in terms of its ability to use technology?
So I I left the Philippines when I was 16, and I've been in North America for the past 2 decades, and moved back to Asia. I am now living in Singapore for Facebook. And the challenge, the problem that we needed to solve was how do we actually bring Facebook to those who want it, but the way they access technology is very different from how people in developed markets like Canada, the US, Europe, or even in Singapore access technology. And that access is primarily through mobile technology. And one thing we've learned, or I learned through my work in technology, is that the Philippines is actually always ahead in terms of mobile technology. We already know the story, right? Like, first really innovate on the use of SMS, which is now, kind of, that was the grandfather of what we all have today, the WhatsApp and the Line, the Kakao Talks of this world. And their use of mobile as the means to not only communicate with each other, but to also access the internet, to distribute information, is one of the highest in the world. So for the first time, there is technology that is affordable and accessible to as many Filipinos as possible. And that levels the playing field. So the gap between the Philippines and its economic promise, its academic promise, has always been about what they know. And so with access to the internet through mobile technology, we are able to level the playing field. So I'm really, to say the word inspired and bullish about where the Philippines is headed would be an understatement. I think if there is a moment in time where we could actually leapfrog and get to where we should have been, the time's now.
And that's part of the purpose for you in this film, it seems like, at least, right?
It is, like the other thing about Dado is that so he innovated and took a look at all of these different technologies that were available, and what he did was he brought them together into what is now called the personal computer chipset. And that then spurred a whole whack of innovations in the personal computer industry. And today, he's focused on giving back to the Philippines, but in a way that is true to who he is, and in a form that is familiar to me. He's a technologist,
Yep.
and I am a social technologist. He's an entrepreneur, and so am I. And so, um, one thing that resonated with me about Dado is when he talks about the Philippines, he does not talk about it from the language of a philanthropist or an idealist. He talks about it very much based on who he is and what he knows, which is engineering. So his goal is not to alleviate misery or poverty, right? His goal is to eliminate poverty. And there's a very big difference.
Huge.
Alleviating poverty and alleviating misery means that you're working on the superficial level, right?
Yeah.
You do something, and the person in front of you, the few that you are able to touch, has a short-term relief,
Right.
and you feel good about yourself, right? Now, what Dado is trying to do is similar to what he's done with technology, which is he tried to understand the problem, broke it apart into their different component pieces, and he's then reassembling them in a way where the solution will get right to the root of the problem, not to the superficial level of the problem. People tend to talk about poverty as a disparity in resources, right? As
Yeah.
disparity in money. Someone has and someone does not, and the person who does not is considered poor,
Yeah.
poverty, living in poverty. But if you really think about it, the definition of poverty is actually a disparity in a resource, but that resource is not money but knowledge.
Interesting.
Those who know and those who do not know yet.
Yeah.
And so we need to, if we are going to help the Philippines and the Filipinos fulfill its rightful potential, we need to get to the very heart of the problem. And there is no doubt about it. It is about education, which will lead to innovation, which will then lead to entrepreneurship in the Philippines that could distribute wealth.
How do we move into that to grow to grow innovators? How can we do that and take advantage of where the Philippines is right now?
It really is a massive mind shift, Maria. And this may be contentious, but we will not be able to get to a place where there are enough people who are innovating unless we tweak a slight fundamental core of who Filipinos are, right? This need to be deferential. This need to say yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. This need to please. We need to actually look at problems and go, okay, if it's not going to be us who's going to try to solve this problem, then who will?
Yep.
And if it is indeed us, then it's about time for us to do things differently. And that starts with like everyday, kind of like everyday behavior, right? We need to exactly. It is culture. You hit it right on the head. We need to be able to. I guess the word that I will use is we need logical and skeptical thinking. Just because something's put in front of us as being fact may not be fact. In fact, a lot of times it is not fact. And we need to apply science and critical thinking and be rigorous and say, is this in fact, the solution that is being put in front of us? Are the people in front of us who claim to be experts truly are? What is their self-interest? And why are they asking us to do certain things? And so that skeptical thinking should lead to a different way of looking at a problem and potentially peeling off all the layers and get to the very root of the problem. And we need to focus on that problem. And that's what Dado and his organization PhilDev is doing, right? Like, the strategy is three-pronged. It's education.
Yeah.
That's the source and definition of poverty.
Correct.
Then we need to be able to innovate. That does not mean that we should be shipping those people out as product, right?
Yep, absolutely.
As a technology, that does not scale.
Fantastic. So we're going to scale inspiration. Elmer, you are a technologist, but the first time I think you're making a film. It's a whole different creative
It
process
is.
for you. I guess what insights, what did you take out of making this film, which by the way everyone will see in a short while?
So there are three things, three insights. Let me share two that are kind of broader and one that's highly personal. Um, the first one is that there are so many young Filipinos who are so talented, who are inspired and really want to break through. Through the work at PhilDev, I've been able to meet a lot of the scholars and a lot of students, and man, their stories are incredible, incredibly inspiring. Their abilities and capabilities, and more importantly, their drive is incredible. So we have millions of these kids, all just looking not for, again, a handout. What they're looking for is a solution
Yep.
to help them to get to where they need to get to, which is really about education and scholarship. So first insight here is that there is a plethora and a resource of amazing minds out there, young minds that are waiting to be discovered and nurtured and supported and to blossom. So the future is incredibly bright.
Excellent.
Um,
Second?
the second is going through the film and again watching sort of like where Dado came from and knowing where he is today. What I've learned is um, that we need to find a way to go beyond idealism, right? So idealism in of itself is the seed, right? That's a thing. That's a spark.
Yep.
And then you need to be pragmatic,
Yep.
right? If all you did was sat there and dream and
Yes.
hope that things will become better based on whatever belief system you may have, it's not enough. You need to be pragmatic, and you that will lead to action.
Yep.
And I think that's where we are as the Philippines. There's enough action that there is no way in hell, not a single person will ever say that Filipinos are lazy. No way. So we've got action, we've got work ethic. What is actually missing is a way to just scale whatever we have. And so, second thing, and I am biased here, but because of the profession and my life passion and what I do, which is all about technology, but it's gotten reinforced to me that the problems that we face today cannot be solved by yesterday's solutions, which means that we need to go beyond idealism and action, and we need to get into technology and critical thinking,
Yep.
rational thinking, and being highly skeptical.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then you said three. The third one, the
Yeah,
personal part.
look, the last one is it is personal. So sa Tondo ako lumaki, right? The Tondo, Manila. It is right in the heart of it. To say that it is an unpleasant neighborhood would be an understatement. My father's a small business owner, and we lived in a relatively safe little cocoon within Tondo. And growing up, right, most of the people that you hear about that people tend to look up to tend to look like or tend to hold a few characteristics. One is they have a surname, a last name that you recognize. It's
Right.
probably on the street name, sometimes up on a building, and you look up to them without ever thinking what have they done, right? Um, the second thing is you look up to those who are popular. So this is through some kind of talent or celebrity. They're good looking, whatever it is. And the third one is money, which is kind of like associated with the two or three, right?
Yeah.
The first one or two. Um, and so what I've learned is that there are people like Dado Banata, right? You've never heard of the surname, much less the name. but their impact in the world is far greater than any name up on some building or mall, right? And so what I'm saying is that it is time for us to go beyond the natural or the old paradigm of who we should look up to. And again, we should start being skeptical and start thinking about who should, not so much as who we should look up to, but who are the people that are making a true impact in the world, right? And not hold them in reverence, right?
Yep.
We should even challenge them. And so the film is really not only about Dado's life story and his family and what he is trying to do, but in a way, it's a challenge to the Dados of this world and to Dado himself. If not us, but then who?
Fantastic. Absolutely. Change the paradigm by changing the narrative, by highlighting the narrative that has succeeded far more than what we've been used to, right? It sounds like you, Elmer.
No, not all, Maria. And again, this is where we apply skeptical thinking, right? Like we need to find people who've made impact in the world. This is simply a way to tell the story of a man's life and hopefully inspire a bunch of Filipinos to focus on education, focus on disrupting and innovating, and focusing on building businesses that could distribute wealth. All I can say is that the future is bright for the Philippines, but we have a moment in time where we can seize that opportunity, and it's now.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you so much. We have been speaking with Elmer Soto and the film, a 4-minute film coming up soon. You should be able to watch it right below. I'm Maria Ressa. Thanks, Elmer. Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the time.
Is Dado Banatao. I come from the north. My father was a farmer. I am an engineer. I grew up in a typical barrio in Cagayan Valley. Back then, there was no electricity, no telephones. I was taught math by moving bamboo sticks. There were no luxuries. Almost all of my classmates stopped going to school after 6th grade to help in the fields. But my father never asked me to help him. He wanted a better life for me. He made it clear his job was to keep food on the table. My job was to study. I went to high school far from my home. I felt inferior to the other students. They were from the city. I was the son of a farmer. While my friends played basketball, I studied. I fell in love with engineering. I wanted to build things. But when I graduated from Mapua, there were no design jobs for engineers in the Philippines. So, I moved to America. I applied for a master's in engineering at Stanford University. I was excited, but I was also so intimidated. Everyone seemed smarter than I was. So I studied twice as hard. I saw an opportunity to design better computer chips, and I started a company. That company failed. No one told me that I could do it. I had to tell myself that I could. And so I tried it again. This time, we succeeded. My success is a direct result of my beginnings. It is the same will and determination that every Filipino possesses. Our country is one of the fastest growing economies in Asia. But over 30% of our people still live like I did growing up. But my life shows a different path is possible. It is why I started PhilDev. We imagine a Philippines where every school has internet, where deserving students are given scholarships so they never have to stop learning, where thousands of young Filipinos start companies that hire millions more. We know hardship. It's time we learn success. I am not so special, but I am determined. My story could be your story. As Filipinos, it must be our story.